You may be wondering what a cemetery in rural Indiana has to do with the Battle of Antietam during the American Civil War. I am in Hartsville, Indiana, southeast of Indianapolis. September of 1862, members of the 27th Indiana Volunteers was in the Frederick, Maryland area. And they were walking through ground that was just recently inhabited by members of Lee's army. When one of the members of the 27th Indiana Volunteers looked down and seen a note. He picked up the note and realized that it could be of some importance. So he turned it over to his commanders, and the note eventually found its way up to General George McClellan. And that note became known as Order 191. Some call it Lost Orders 191. But basically it was a note, an order from Confederate General Robert E. Lee telling his troops where to go around the Frederick, Maryland area. And reportedly, when George McClellan was given the orders, he looked at it and knew what it was. And he said something to the effect of, "Now I know what to do." So basically, like I say, it was an order from General Robert E. Lee commanding his units, where to move, how to get there. Very valuable information to the Union Army. They're again known as Orders 191. So the gentleman that found it happens to be buried in this rural cemetery southeast of Indianapolis. Private Mitchell, Company F of the 27th Indiana Volunteers. He is the one that found the note, picked it up, and gave it to his superiors, and it found its way up to General McClellan. And so during the Battle of Antietam, September of 1862, they kind of gave the Union Army an advantage, knowing where troop movements of General Lee and the Army of Northern Virginia. And this is where he is buried, Private Mitchell. When I was driving here, I was expecting kind of a more modern cemetery. But this is very rural, very old cemetery. So Private Mitchell gave the note that he had found to a comrade of the 27th Indiana Volunteers. And I will be heading to Muncie, Indiana for the second part of this video to visit the grave of the guy that Private Mitchell handed that note to. I am in Hartsville, Indiana. This is the Hartsville Baptist Cemetery. Thank you for your service, Private Mitchell. I am now in Muncie, Indiana at Beech Grove Cemetery. So we were just down at the grave of Barton Mitchell in Hartsville, Indiana, about an hour and a half south of Muncie, where I am now. Private Mitchell found Lee's Order 191, and when he found it, he gave it to his sergeant, and his name was John Bloss. Sergeant Bloss is buried here in Muncie, in Delaware County. And this is his headstone. And on his marker it says, "Finder of Lee's Lost Order, number 191 at Frederick, Maryland, 1862. So John Bloss was in the 27th Indiana Volunteers. And then Sergeant Bloss, when he received the orders from Private Mitchell, he handed it over to his officer, or I'm sorry, his commander. And it would find its way up to General McClellan. And it would help defeat Lee's army of Northern Virginia at the Battle of Antietam. So John Bloss had a storied career himself. He would go to Oregon and Kansas, and then became a sergeant during the Civil War. He was an educator. He studied medicine. And he would come back to Muncie and become head of their education system. And he died here in 1905 and is buried alongside his family. So John Bloss, Sergeant, (27th Indiana Volunteers), one of the finders of General Robert E. Lee's Lost Orders 191. So I will, at the end of this video, share the grave sites of the other men that were instrumental in getting Orders 191 to General McClellan. They were not part of the 27th Indiana Volunteers, and they are not buried here in Indiana. But it'll be fun to show their grave sites as well. So there's always history in your backyard. This is in my backyard. Beech Grove Cemetery in Muncie, Indiana. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy this content. It helps me to bring more content.